Secretary of Commerce Alex Kelly. We got Nassau County Commissioners, Nassau County Economic Development Board, of course, our great sheriff, Bill Leeper, Bradford County Commissioner Chris Doherty, North Florida Economic Development Partnership, Jeff Henry, Florida Trucking Association President Alex Miller, North Florida Technical College Director Keith Kirby, and I know we have other people, so thank you all for being here. I do just want to say very briefly, we lost a very good Florida resident yesterday, Coach Lou Holtz. And although he was not a coach in any of our state universities, he lived here for decades. He was down in Lake Nona, and I think he's the only coach to bring 6 teams to bowl games, different things. That'll never be broken. But he was just a really, really good man. And so, you look about the football in this, that's great. But he was very faithful servant of God, very, very faithful man. Very caring man, and I learned, so we became friends over the years. Like, he supported me in these endeavors, and I remember we're at an event down in Lake Nona, and it's all these supporters, Lou and me, and Lou goes up and speaks, and then introduces me. Well, you don't want to speak after Lou. He was one of the best speakers, probably the best speaker I've ever heard in person, and so I learned a very valuable lesson. So anytime I was ever at events with him, I would just say, make sure I go before him. I don't want to have to follow that. But he's in a better place now, and we send the best to his and his family. But he lived a very full, productive, and admirable life. So God bless Lou Holtz. We're also making progress. I was here up in Nassau announcing that we're going to do, now obviously we need the feds to approve, but we want to do for the Atlantic coast what we do in the Gulf and let people get the red snapper. We have massive season in the Gulf since we've been able to manage it at the state level. And I remember when I did the first big expansion, they were moaning, oh, you can take all the fish, they're going to be gone. The population is healthier than ever, okay? This is what it was meant to do. So you're going there, people are loving it. They plan vacations around this because we did so many key dates. And I think we did, 130 some days where the Atlantic was 1 or 2 days typically is what they've been doing. The feds have been allowing. It's pathetic. So we did the thing. We got positive response from NOAA. We've got to work through this. But I fully anticipate we're going to be successful in that. And so, yes, I'm going to do the awards today, but I definitely want to make sure I come back to be able to announce the expanded Atlantic red snapper season, which I know a lot of people here will appreciate very much, and we're going to keep working on that. We also have next week TPC. It's a big event up here in Northeast Florida. Honestly, Nassau's got some great, people love Amelia and going to Fernandina. It's a great place, to live, but also to visit. Very, very nice. But they'll be down in Ponte Vedra Beach for that. It's one of the biggest events we do in the state of Florida, really all year, every year. We got the Daytona 500. We did the national championship game. We do other things, but that's really one, and I know a lot of people have a lot of fun on that. We used to live kind of in that neighborhood, and I'd go out there a lot. 17, I never had a problem with, right? It's just, if you can just hit a pitching wedge or a 9-iron, it's about a 140-yard shot, whatever. It's bigger than it looks on TV, I will tell you. But what people don't appreciate, I don't know how many times I played 18. I don't think I ever birdied it once, and usually bigger numbers. That is a very difficult hole. So when you're watching that, to me, I think 18 is one of the tougher holes, out there. Okay, so we're here to be able to announce some new awards that's going to continue to move the ball forward on economic development and on job and workforce development. I said a thing when I came in as governor. We said we're going to be #1 in workforce education by 2030. This was 2019. We were in the bottom half of states, and I did that. Well, one, the goal was great, but I wanted to focus on workforce because, a lot of these colleges, look, our universities do fine in Florida, and we have the #1 rated state university system, lowest tuition in state, all this great stuff. We're proud of that, but, you look around the country, a lot of these colleges, they're charging an arm and a leg, and they're producing squat, worthless degrees that some of these kids have been getting for decades now, debt accumulating. And it's like, look, if that's what you really want to do, I mean, if that's something that you just would not want to do, workforce, okay, we're not going to force anyone to do it, but we want people to know there's other pathways where you can be successful and really seriously successful with some of the things that we're doing at our high schools, our state colleges, all these different things. A lot of these skills are very much in demand, and so we said we want to emphasize that and just send the message that you're not any less because you're going there rather than doing a traditional 4-year brick and ivy. Especially with some of the mush. If you get the mush degree, you end up in jobs you get out of high school anyways. And so we've been able to put more and more folks in apprenticeships. We've been able to expand a lot of these programs, and we're really clicking on all cylinders there, such that we said we wanted to be number 1 by 2030, but we were able to say we did it in 2025, 5 years early, number 1 in Florida, number 1 in the country. And we're going to keep going with that, and you're going to continue to see more and more. Part of it too is just it used to be like, if you go back to like the 40s and 50s, like the average person, like they could fix cars, they could fix air conditioning as that was becoming more and more mainstream or whatever. But kind of in the younger generation, those skills have really evaporated. So if you have those skills, in Florida now, you're going to always be hired to fix people's air conditioning. Like you can start your own company and make a lot of money fixing people's air conditioning. There's a whole host of things you can do with electrical. There's a whole host of things you can do. We do these aviation maintenance programs in high schools. They go to work for SpaceX after this. So these are great opportunities, and not just to be able to be employed and gainfully employed and not have to go into debt, but also it does lead to opportunities to be an entrepreneur, to start your own business, and to be able to do very, very well. And I've seen that just in the time we've been here. I've seen young people do that, and I know that's been happening. So we're excited for doing that. We also have been very supportive of helping to build the necessary infrastructure so that we can expand our economic base, particularly with industry and manufacturing. And we've added, Alex? We've added 30, 40, 50,000 manufacturing jobs since I've been governor. That's not happening in many other states right now, unfortunately. So we were able to do that. And I think we have a potential to do a lot more. The education plays into it, because if people are being trained in those skills, then businesses know they're going to have a pipeline of folks. And so Florida makes a lot of sense to be able to do that. But we've done a whole host of things all across the state of Florida, to create some really great footprints that's attracted companies and that's been able to produce jobs. And, it's interesting because people talk about, get this company to move here or not. Well, look, not every company coming here is necessarily, if a San Francisco tech company is just going to bring all their employees and not hire anybody here, then they vote like they're in San Francisco, and why do we want that? But like some of them just drive the cost of living up. What companies that are coming, they want to be able to hire people. I think the people that have come into Florida, by and large, have wanted to hire people in our communities, and I think that's something that's really, really significant. You grow up in different parts of the state. We want people to be able to pursue their dreams, but you don't want people to be forced to leave where they grew up because there's just not opportunity there. We want to make sure there's a lot of opportunity. So our role, we don't run these businesses as the government, as state government, but to create the necessary infrastructure so that these things can come to fruition, whether it's the airports that we've done so much on, whether it's industrial parks, whether it's roads, whether it's all these different things, we've been there and we've done it. And so that brings us here to today's announcement. So I have various funds where people can apply. It's usually like the locals will apply. They get evaluated, and I don't even evaluate it. It's done by Alex and his team, and then they provide a list of options to be able to select, and then we select the ones that we think are going to have the most impact. A lot of times the locals are matching what we're doing or contributing. Sometimes there's even private money. There's a whole bunch of different things, and then we're able to do these awards. And I have the Job Growth Grant Fund, which we'll talk about today. We have Rural Infrastructure Fund. We've got a lot of different ways where we've made an impact on Florida communities. And on these grants, we've done them all over the state. We've done them in Miami. We've done them in Tampa. But rural usually is better because the money goes farther. And honestly, the people really appreciate it when you do rural. You go down to some of these other places, it doesn't even register sometimes. But when you go and help, expand the capabilities of some rural, that makes a big difference. And so I wouldn't say that we are biased in favor of rural, but when I'm looking at these, I just know how much farther the money can go and how much more significant that will be than if I did it in an area that's already got, a lot of money flowing down there for various other reasons. And so we're here today to be able to announce more awards. So we've got 2 awards that we're going to be doing. The first one is $6.25 million to Nassau County to construct a roadway network to establish an industrial and commercial site. This site will be located near the US 301 and Interstate 10 interchange along US 90 and the Florida Gulf and Atlantic Railroad main line with connection in Baldwin and in Pensacola. The new site will be an ideal hub for businesses across multiple sectors, including manufacturing, transportation, and logistics, and is expected to create 1,250 direct jobs at the Nassau County site. So that's going to be something that's going to be big. We're also awarding $3 million to Bradford County School District to construct and develop a new commercial driver's license training facility within the county. The program will be offered through North Florida Technical College to mirror the CDL program currently offered at nearby Camp Blanding. The investment will allow the existing CDL program to double student enrollment with a new total of up to 60 students per year. If you think about it, these truck drivers are aging out. It was a big generation of them. You got to have other people coming in. The logistics is very important. We're a big logistics state with all this stuff coming into Jacksport, all these other places. You need it. But then you also have, Florida and the Trump administration have tried to crack down on these states issuing these licenses to people that can't even speak English. I mean, how ridiculous is it that you're doing this and you can't even read the street signs? And so, we need to make sure that our people are engaged in this. Those are going to be the people that are going to be the most productive and obviously going to know what's going on around it. We had a guy driving, couldn't speak English, and he did an illegal U-turn with a big rig, and I think he killed 3 people on the roadway. And I'm just thinking to myself, it's like you look at the signs, you should obey those especially if you're in a situation like that. So we've worked really hard for years now to expand our CDL capability in Florida. And we were doing maybe like a few hundred or maybe 1,000 a year. Now we're many thousand a year that are being produced in the state of Florida. And those are really good jobs. If you're qualified and you're entry level driving the big trucks, Walmart, you're over $100,000 right off the bat. So you have an opportunity. Not easy jobs. It's a lot easier if you have a Buc-ee's to stop at than some of these, not as good gas stations. And you'd be able to get that, but it's not an easy job. And so you have the ability to get compensated well. So we want to make those opportunities for them. And I think what they're doing in Bradford, I think, is going to pay a lot of dividends. And so we've awarded almost $330 million since 2019 through our Job Growth Grant Fund. It's facilitated the creation of 43,000 jobs, and it's also created an additional 33,000 slots for various workforce education opportunities, including but not limited commercial driver's license. And this CDL training and the development of the new job creation hub at the interchange, this is going to really improve our shipping and logistics capability. It will attract jobs. A lot of these companies now, they're getting pushed out of some of these other states. And so, it used to be governors would go begging people to come. I just answer, oh yeah, you want to come? Okay, fine. Whatever, how many jobs, whatever, where you got to go. So we have a lot of momentum going, but I definitely think areas, like North Florida, have a tremendous opportunity to be able to capitalize on this. And so we've had a lot of folks that have been working with us on these. North Florida Technical College, Nassau County Economic Development Board, Florida Trucking, Bradford County, of course, Nassau County, Jax USA. So we really appreciate everybody being involved. And as part of this award, we will also amend the North Florida Rural Area of Opportunity to include Nassau County, so that expands the region to 15 counties in North Florida. All right, so I'm going to do the checks. So let's see. First check, we've got Bradford County. Where are you guys at? So why don't we get right here? You got Robert, you got the picture? Okay. Good job. You got it, and Nassau County. All right, so why don't we get, you guys get on either side here. Okay, congratulations.
Well, Governor, thank you so much, and thank you all for being here today. Alex Kelly, Secretary of Commerce. Governor, I want to start just by echoing some of the thanks. Sherry Mitchell from the Nassau County Economic Development Board, the team at North Florida Technical College, really the whole team here in Nassau County, Scott Gornegay with Bradford County, Amber Shepard with the Northeast Florida Economic Development Corporation, Alex Miller with the Florida Trucking Association, and Jeff Hendry. Jeff, where'd you go? Jeff, right there, right there. Tremendous partners, and really what makes grants like this not just the day that they're kind of thought of, but the process of getting here. What makes these grants work is the incredible partnership along the way, the questions answered, the information that we dive into, working with all of you. So it really makes it happen. Governor, I'm going to echo a point that you brought up. In the state of Florida today, we have about 430,000 Floridians who directly work in manufacturing. Those 430,000 Floridians, they support the jobs of 2.8 million Floridians who are somehow either in manufacturing or shipping, logistics, sales, marketing of those products made right here in the state of Florida. And I think the synergy behind actually these two grants that you've awarded here today, Governor, County, just north of Baldwin, where there's tremendous growth, and so now there's going to be tremendous jobs there. And then right next door in Bradford County, the additional talent coming out of Bradford County to support moving those products throughout the state and throughout the country. There's a lot of synergy and a great story there. Moving Florida-made products, and I'd like to think and hope that some of those truck drivers are going to be moving products that are made right here, in Nassau County. And then, Governor, just to highlight the last point that you brought up, the designation of Nassau County as part of the North Florida Economic Development Partnership Rural Area of Opportunity. This is so important. Today, 30 rural counties and a few small cities benefit from this designation. When those counties work with state government, work with our state agencies, they get some expedited permitting. They get benefits in terms of waivers of different matching requirements. They really, frankly, get less government in the way of ultimately the goals they're trying to achieve with either grant programs or things like that. And the value of that is worth tens of millions of dollars annually to each of our rural counties. So it's a tremendous value. And Governor, thank you for your leadership today. And again, thank you to all of you for your partnership in making these grants happen and what we do with the next steps. Thank you so much.
Okay. Come on up, Nassau. Alan, you ready? Come on up.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you. Today is just a monumental day in Nassau County, Governor, as we celebrate the Florida Job Growth Grant Fund and the opportunities it brings to our community. I want to sincerely thank you, Governor, your support of this program, recognizing the importance of public infrastructure, workforce development in our region. The Board of County Commissioners approved the grant application for $6.25 million and to construct that 4-lane highway you discussed earlier down at the 301 interchange. This project represents a strong partnership between public and private sectors Thank you, Mr. Avery Roberts, for being part of that partnership. It has the potential to transform our local economy. The site is expected to accommodate 6.3 million square feet of industrial and commercial space, creating over 2,300 jobs, 1,200 in the next 10 years. That's big for Nassau County. These opportunities will support targeted industries, as he discussed, logistics, trade, manufacturing, and meaningful career paths for our residents. Beyond the roadway, the project includes signalization and intersection improvements at US 90, establishing infrastructure needed for safe and efficient access, long-term growth. We're proud to take this step forward, build a stronger, more prosperous Nassau County. We're grateful to you, Governor, thank you, sir, for your continued support in these initiatives that bring real jobs, investment, and opportunity to our community. Thank you, sir, so much.
Well, we're excited about being able to help deliver these opportunities. I mean, I know you guys have a lot of potential. You've done a great job, but there's a lot more to do. So this will be part of it, and you know, it's just a great part of the state. There's a lot of potential here. So we'll keep being there. You know, we've got more that we'll be doing, you know, throughout the rest of the year to really you know, bring it full circle. So congratulations. I'm happy to take some questions. We got anyone? Yes.
Yes, Casey Stone, Action News Jax. I want to know if you have a position on the Blue Ribbon Project bill. There are major concerns it could result in massive developments popping up at St. John's with little to no local input.
I don't know the particulars of it. You know, I think that by and large, you know, local governments have a role in, you know, fashioning the type of communities that are developing, especially in areas that have had big population growth. Now, sometimes they do things that I think, you know, need some intervention. Like, you know, we had to intervene because they weren't letting people rebuild their homes after the hurricanes to what they had in the Gulf Coast of Florida. And I'm just thinking to myself, if your home's damaged and you build it back to where it was, you have a right to do that. You should not be told that you can't do it. And so, you know, so there are those instances. And so I have to see, you know, whatever comes across my desk, you know, we'll look at if something passes, but it's not something that's not one of my bills that I'm pushing. Yes.
The Aquila, I don't know how to say it, the Aquila Dam, the dam that blocks that river there, they're talking about taking it out. How do you feel about that?
Well, you know, they put money in last year that would have, you know, caused this problem with the Rodman Dam. You know, a lot of people like the Rodman Dam. You know, I used to represent Putnam County. I remember they would take me there and show me, like, the Rodman Dam. So I'm just thinking, like, you know, to just kind of pull the rug out of that because it's an important thing for the community, you know, is there ways that you can, you know, help the river without just doing it in kind of like a rash way. So that was why I vetoed the line item appropriation, because I thought it was going to, you know, lead to something where they weren't going to necessarily have input into what happens going forward. And I don't know, you know, there's history about why that was built or whatever, but, you know, people are in that, they're fishing, they're doing all this stuff. And so it's become something that has been important to a lot of those folks in Putnam County. Now, I know there's other people who don't necessarily care about that, who have other interests and want to see other things. And I'm not saying that they're misguided and from their perspective, but I know, just having been involved with Putnam, that it's something that's been meaningful, and that's why I took the action that I did. Yes.
Not particularly local, but I wanted to give you a chance to talk about everything happening in the Middle East.
Well, I think a lot of you who've known me over the years, you know, and I've pointed out for many, many years, that when I was serving in Iraq back in that critical time, 2007, 2008, the U.S. was incurring a lot of casualties at the time. And at the time I was over there, 90% of those were because of the Iranians. They were funding and orchestrating the Shia militia groups, Islamist groups. They were under the tutelage of Qasem Soleimani, but ultimately directed by the Ayatollah. Neither the Ayatollah or Soleimani have lived to tell the tale anymore, so they're both gone. And I think that that's a good thing. I was supportive of the Soleimani strike back in the day, and I was glad to see that justice was brought there. Now, we did have a service member from Winter Haven that was killed in one of the rocket attacks. Casey and I send our condolences to the family. You know, it just goes to show when you put that uniform on, you never know where you're going to get sent. You never know what's going to come your way. And, you know, we owe a debt of gratitude to the people that are doing that. So I was really saddened to see one of our Floridians that was struck. But I will tell you, you know, having seen it firsthand, you know, that regime, they would kill as many Americans as they could. I mean, that's just the reality of who we're dealing with here. Now, look, there's tactical questions, you know, what's the mission, all this, and they're going to obviously, you know, going to have to address those. But just in terms of whether somebody like Khamenei, you know, deserved to face justice, the answer is yes, he deserved to face justice. And it wasn't just our service members in Iraq. Iran was behind the bombing in the Marine barracks in Beirut in 1983. That killed 241 people, over 200 U.S. Marines. It was Hezbollah. That was his predecessor, the Ayatollah Khomeini, was in charge then. But, you know, this is a regime that has done whatever they can to wage, you know, conflict against the United States of America. So just personally, as somebody that was over in Iraq at that time, that saw the casualties, that saw the Iranians were behind it. It was almost at that time, it's like, oh, well, you know, you just don't want to say Iran or what for whatever reason. There was a lot of fatigue, I guess, you know, I get it. But the reality is they never really faced justice until the Soleimani strike during Trump's first term. And then now, you know, with I guess all the Ayatollahs are dropping like flies. They bring someone else in and then they're gone. But at the end of the day, you know, this is a regime, you know, they're a fanatical, apocalyptic, militant Islamist regime. And that's a little bit different than just being a run-of-the-mill dictatorship or somebody, you know, even like, even though I was supportive of snatching Maduro, like even like a Kim Jong-un, because for their worldview, you know, they want the imposition of Sharia law worldwide, and they want the destruction of infidels, people that reject Sharia law. And so when you fuse that with the potential for nuclear weapons, it creates a different dynamic than you would in kind of the normal U.S. maybe versus the Soviets in the Cold War. You know, the Soviets were atheists, and so it's like everyone blows up, they got nowhere to go, right? So they were not necessarily going to be as quick on the trigger. You know, with the Iran and that regime, you know, that's going to be the issue. So look, there's a lot of that is going to be outside of what America can do. You know, my hope would be that the population is freed from the grip of the Islamist regime, and that they have a regime that really is, you know, taking advantage of the culture of the Persian culture was very rich and advanced. And then the Ayatollah came in, and honestly, it was Jimmy Carter was a big problem with that, paving the way for him. He comes in and clamps it down, and what's happened in Iran since 1979? It's been destitution. The regime makes money, they fund terrorism, they fund IRGC, they fund all these other things, but the average person, you know, doesn't have a lot of opportunity, and I do think that culturally, they could be a very successful country. They've got a lot of resources. They've got a lot of history. I think they'd have very strong education very quickly. You know, if they were liberated from the yoke of the Islamist tyranny. But that ultimately has been the problem. Is the regime that's driving all this stuff. You know, there's only one regime in the world that's funding Hamas, funding Hezbollah, funding Palestinian Islamic Jihad, funding the Houthis. I mean, like, this is what they do. They get money from oil, and they try to export jihad around the Middle East and really around the world to a certain extent. I mean, you know, they tried to assassinate, you know, the President of the United States. That was something that they tried to do. So I think it's very clear, you know, where they stand on it. So I just, you know, we lost hundreds of people in Iraq when they were fomenting these attacks. And I remember going in, when I did the training before we went in, they sit you down, they would show you videos of IEDs, which that was very prominent at the time. There was a lot of talk about that because then they started up-armoring the Humvees to buy that. And so they kind of show, you know, you go, explosion, sometimes people are fine, sometimes you'd have casualties, injuries, sometimes you'd even have deaths. But it wasn't like if you got hit that in those up-armored Humvees that it was, that there was no chance of survival. It was actually a pretty high chance. But then so you kind of feel a little more at ease, right? Because if you're driving around, you don't want this. Then they're like, well, now we got to show you kind of what's now we're seeing in theater. And they were EFPs, explosively formed penetrators. And so you go in that, and if that hits you, you're done. Like no chance, right? Because it's like metal just projecting through, and it's like little bullets. And they're basically just like, listen, the way to deal with that is to just not get hit with it, because we don't really have an adequate defense. The EFPs were what the Iranians were funding, and so you saw the casualties mount over those months and even years there, and that was all very intentional and all very deliberate. So we'll be back here hopefully to announce the Red Snapper. I'm looking forward to doing that. I know a lot of people here will be there. I mean, I'll tell you, recreationally, the people up here are going to love it. But then in terms of, you're going to have more tourists wanting to come if they know they have an ability to do the snapper. That's what's happened in the Gulf Coast. I mean, people plan. I mean, we did Memorial Day, I think 4th of July, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, New Year. I mean, a lot of these things, and people would actually plan vacations around it. And this is a great coast here in Northeast Florida. There's a lot to offer. But if people know they can get out there and do that, that's going to take it to the next level. I like these places around here. I think the Fernandina is a great town. A lot of people who are not from here may not know. It's amazing. Very historic too. It's really cool. You still have that burger joint in the gas station that they retrofitted? T-Rays. Yeah, T-Rays. That was really good. So it's like they converted an old gas station. It's like really classic burger joint. You do it. You also had, when the Omni took over that Amelia Island plantation, they commissioned, there's this famous steakhouse in Dallas called Bob's. They commissioned a Bob's for that Omni there. And so, Bob's was the best steakhouse I've ever been to. From this day, I first went there a long time. To this day it is. So when I was in the reserves, I was doing duty in Mayport. We had just had Madison, our first child. So first, she wasn't First Lady then, I wasn't governor then. We stayed at the Navy Lodge in Mayport. And I told her, I said, we have Bob's. I've been talking about it. I mean, she had never been. I'd been talking about it for the whole time we were married. I'm like, all right, we'll do the ferry across. We're going to go. And so we did it at a time where we were the only ones there. We have probably a 4-week-old baby. And we bring her in and we're just watching. Because, when you're a new parent, you like watching by the time you have your second and third, it's going to be fine, right? But that you're just trying to figure out. And we did that. So she and I we did Bob's, and then Madison did not make a peep that whole time. I mean, she slept like a baby, slept through. But a lot of people don't know that that's there. I mean, that's a really, really good place, but it has a lot of history in Dallas. So there's a lot of great stuff, going on here. And, this hopefully will play an added role into the continued advancement of Nassau. And I really like what they're going to do in Bradford with the CDLs. I mean, we've put a lot of emphasis on CDLs because we know it's important. And I think we're probably the #1 state for turning out CDLs, or certainly one of the top states at this point. And we want to keep that momentum going. So thanks, everybody. God bless.